Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Healing Home. I'm your host, Michelle, and I'm happy to be here as always. Really excited to talk with my guest today, Chaney of Project Chaney. Now, I've gotten to know Chaney over maybe the past year or so, maybe a little less, through all the weaving spiders. Shout out to the spiders. I've been able to be on a few streams with her. I've always enjoyed her insights, her ability to weave information together, to connect dots, to drop just some amazing insights as well as have comedic relief going on. She has an ability to bring the laughter and the smiles amongst all of the crazy shit that most of us all talk about and learn about. And so, with all of that, I'm very excited to talk to her today because she's also had an interesting healing journey over the course of this year, with some cancer that popped up for her and some other health issues. And so, those who know Chaney may know that she did a solo episode on her journey with all of this stuff, which really just like I really loved hearing your story. I always love hearing people's healing journeys, the things they learn, the insights they come across. And she has some really great gems. So if you haven't heard that, I suggest heading to her channel and listening to her solo show. But I really want to dig in deeper with her, and she's down. And I know that there's all sorts of directions we're going to be able to go in. So let's do it. Before I bring her on, I just want to say thank you to all my patrons. Really appreciate you guys. More of you are rolling in and showing your support, and it means so much to me and Mario both. So thank you so much. And without further ado, let's say hello to Chaney. Hello,
Michelle,
lady. How are you?
great. How are you doing?
Doing really good. Very
I,
happy to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
Sweet. So everything going good? Weather down there in Florida is all right today?
It was super hot. I laid out in the sun today, get my base tan on.
Nice.
It's the first time I've gotten to lay out in so long. So it was like well deserved, like getting to sweat out in the sun.
Dude, one of the best feelings in the world. Seriously.
I didn't take it for granted at all. I did not take it for granted. I like smiled out loud the whole time I was laying in it.
Dude, hell yeah. I love it. We got lots of friends here today saying hello. So excited to chat with you, throw down. For people who might not be familiar with you and what you're up to, what you love to talk about, could you just give us a little intro about yourself and anything that you want to just put out there for people to kind of, let them know what's going on with Chaney?
I'm pretty much a kid growing up with the Church of Hollywood as my altar. I grew up with Enquirer and Star magazines on the tables of my house, so those are so conspiratorial already. I like to educate people through Hollywood, the esoteric symbolisms that I study, that are way deeper, but I try to give everybody example when I explain it, because some of the ideas of the things we talk about are so out there that I try to give them a movie example as well, or something that I can cross-reference, almost like I'm talking to a teenager. Because I feel like a lot of us, as we're going through these like journeys of unlearning, it's easy because the way they brainwashed us was by that church. So like by that Hollywood esoteric hidden symbolism. So I really like to go through that stuff. And I like to delve into people, like as loose as they'll be with me and allow me to question them. I like their journey too. I think everybody has a story, and everybody's healing from trauma, every single person. And when you get to that point where your trauma has words, that's how you heal other people. And so I do find, like, my season 1 of my show was sitting down with people that were brave enough to talk to me and give me words for my own trauma. And it was like my project of projection. So I had a whole bunch of people. And now on season 2, I want to delve into some of these huge, crazy theories I have and sit down with some people that have crazy theories of their own and can really detail it out for me. So I want to like get into ideas, I think, more than people, but I am splitting off into a few things. I have a couple of things in the works. So I'm just excited to be back. It's my favorite hobby to be on this microphone and hang out with people like you. And I needed some time off probably too.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love everything in the direction you're taking things in. It sounds really awesome. And having breaks is good. And I think that the universe gives us opportunities for breaks. And if we don't take them, I feel like the next opportunity, there's like more of a severe roadblock that comes to show us it's time for a break. And then it almost like becomes more severe until finally at some point you have to stop. And it's like, I think that's the balance of life that's important to find, is to not run yourself ragged until that point where you have to stop. It's like maintaining and healing continuously instead of waiting for this one big catastrophic thing, you know? But sometimes that's how it goes. And I think it's really interesting. I too really love hearing people's journeys. And that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast, because there's so much to talk about and explore just in our own human experiences, minus all the stuff that is on the outside, you know? And so I really enjoy where you take things in the Hollywood aspect, because it is, like you said, such a huge part of most everybody's life. Even if they didn't sink into it, it was put into their subconscious at some point, you know, whether it was through school or a TV or a poster or a movie or what have you. And now in these times, we're kind of starting to see it starting to fall apart, right? The Hollywood thing, you know, which is really interesting. So I kind of wanted to get your take on that too, of what you see and what your opinion is on the kind of like falling away of it or the breaking off. Because now we have things like what we're doing. There's YouTube, there's social media. These are the people that are now kind of like stepping into the roles of these celebrities that we've seen through Hollywood. So what do you think about all of that kind of stuff, and where do you see things going in the future?
They kind of told us we'd all have 15 minutes of fame once. Like that was something they put into all of us. And then you see this American Idol culture and this like turn chair for fame culture. And in a way, we kind of do that in ways, but I don't believe a lot of the people I know on this, I don't believe fame has anything to do with it. I think they're really searching. It's almost like lands left to discover. And that's the ideas that are yet to be said, or maybe they took from us, or maybe they hid, or maybe they've never been discovered yet. And it's taken us all here now to be able to talk all over the world in boxes like this. I'm so glittery red pilled. And I believe Hollywood has to fall away because I think it's evil. Everything about it is just made to brainwash us. Everything about these TVs, everything about the phones, it's just there to like somehow hurt us. So I just believe we're headed to a place that it doesn't matter how much they try to hide the information. And it could be something of you putting up something about Twin Towers, or it could be something you putting up a recipe for soap. Nobody knows how severe of these shadow bans that they're actually doing. It could be a person on TikTok teaching people how to make a fire from scratch. And they don't want people to see that. They don't want people to be prepared. They don't want people to learn how to do, you know, different things with gardening or different things with horticulture or animals, or they don't want people to know that. So it's not just the conspiracy that they're hiding. And it's not just maybe like natural remedies that they're hiding that have always been there. I think each generation, if there is a great reset, they take more from us, each one of these resets. I don't think they reset us back to, you know, go and then they watch us go around the board again. I don't think they do that. I think each time they take a little more of our history, a little more of our power, a little more, and then we get this new idea of what's left. So I think Babylon's crumbling, and I think we're going to be around to witness it, and it's kind of awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, I would have to agree. That's an interesting theory about just like it never just starts from scratch again or something. Like it's all based in something. And we've been talking a lot about the evil that is Hollywood, that is these directed energy weapons that are causing quote unquote wildfires and stuff. And just the thought about like, does this evil have to exist in order for the balance to be had? And will there always be this evil force that's there? And I think that it does have to be there, but I think that the amount of information and things that people are now able to broadcast out like we are, it's almost like counteracting it in some way, and we now have like a leg up in some way. They can like use weapons and all this stuff, but I just think the souls and the people who are here to kind of like level everything else up and themselves up are still going to like win at the end of the day. That's how I always feel about it. And try and not get so tied up in like, oh shit, this is like the worst thing ever. Cause it's almost like I always have to tell myself like it has to exist for like us to exist and for there to be pleasure and happiness and all this stuff. And I think it's also there to like they say, hidden in plain sight, or they have to kind of like tell us part of the lie, tell us part of the truth in the lie. And if you have the eyes to see it, you're like going to be able to know what's kind of almost like coming down the pipeline or what they're trying to get across, which I
Like
think is
revelation of the method.
yeah, totally. Exactly.
That's the double cross a little bit, where they're fooling us once by showing us on TV, and if we don't fix it, they cross us again. So
Yep.
it's I want to I think of things of density and light, and like dense energy and light energy. And then I can also think of things like predator and prey, like very easy, like a tiger and a deer, or an owl and a duck. I can separate those. I don't think evil is density and darkness. I think the evil has decided to separate itself from creation, whatever that means, whatever creation is, whatever, if that does mean blood and slaughter sometimes. Sometimes people or animals blood and slaughter for necessity of things, and really the intention of what we, like thou shall not kill. The intention of murder can sometimes be justified, but can the intention of rape be justified? And can the intention of touching a child be justified? And those are two things not written in any book of thou shalt not. So I feel like if there is an evil that isn't okay, like there's natural law for things, and we might consider sometimes it be super harsh and super dense and super tiger on, gazelle. But I think that's totally separate from like a poacher that's just walking through that same safari and sniping all the animals and leaving their carcasses there for fun. That thing decided to separate itself from creation. Like, not that hunters are bad, but like poacher specifically, like you're not doing anything with it. There's no intention with the carcass. You're really just going through to kill. Like that is a different kind of killing. There's no honor in that killing. And so I think somewhere there's intentions, and they're separate from the density and light, like something that wants to stand outside that and control it and take the darkness and the light from the people or the animals or the thing, like a looshing of all the energy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I know people yin yang, and they're like, look, it's something. It has to be in that darker light. And I'm like, but what about if it's outside of that?
Right. And there is that. It's like, I feel like too, because we live in a place that's infinite, even though I believe we live in like a closed system or whatever, I feel like there is this infinite thing happening that there's always an outside. There's always another, in my opinion. I don't know if there's just this ultimate way of one thing. And I like where you're going and how you explain it. And that's one of the things I love about you, is because you have such a way of explaining this stuff and talking about it. And that's one of the reasons why you're here today.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet.
Yeah, no, definitely. So well spoken, and just like you can put things together very quickly. And I can tell that you're always thinking and always just like evolving, which is really important too. And it's super important just to not get stuck in these sort of spirals. And I think that that's what happens a lot in the truth community too. There's so many cul-de-sacs that suck people in, and then they're just spiraling in this one thing for years and years. And then it becomes fear, which not productive, and which leads us to places of illness and things like that, and so moving kind of into that journey, your healing journey that you recently went upon, one of the things that like really, really struck me about your story was the fact that you instinctually knew something was going on, something was wrong. And one of the things that stood out the most was you saying that you had people around you that were concerned and saying, I feel like you should go to the hospital. You need to do this, whatever. And you knew that, but you said something to the effect of like, I knew that once I walked through those doors, I was not going to be the same Chaney than I was when I walked in. And I really loved that you said that. And I loved that you were able to acknowledge it and that you were honest about that, because that, I think, is one of the things that actually prevents people from healing themselves, because they're afraid to let go of that thing they're holding on to that literally may be the thing that's keeping them ill or keeping them back or what have you. And so I want you to expand a little bit about that, and maybe just go through the journey a bit, if you feel like talking about the story, like leading up to it, what you noticed, mostly for people who maybe haven't heard.
Yeah, totally. And the timeline might be a little sketch.
Yeah, no, it's
so
all
bad
good.
with time. It's kind of like a resume. If I have to ever fill out a resume, I'm like, oh, geez, I don't even know when I lived in what state. Like, it's so awful. But last April, probably like April 2022, I had pain in my side, and it had been going on for a little bit. It was in my left side. I always tell people it's where Jesus was cut. I had a pain like right there below my ribs, and it got progressively worse. I should say from February, it got progressively worse until about April. And then I was actually hanging out in a chat room at night, and it was late. It was getting late. And I met an internet friend in real life, and we went out for drinks, and I ate like jalapenos when we were out. And then I got home in the chat room and I ate like 2 ice cream bars. And so I just thought, I've never eaten jalapenos and ice cream together. And I already had this pain in my side, but whatever happened, I just thought, is this the worst indigestion? Like what's going on with me? I tried to do yoga and it got severely worse. And so I crawled to my bathroom floor, and I was laying on the bathroom floor, and this is where the trauma comes in. I wanted to wake my wife and tell her to take me to the hospital, but she had a market in the morning, and I didn't want to disrupt her day. And so something in me was like, just wait till she gets home from work. Just go lay on the couch and wait till she gets home from work. But that was like my little kid not wanting to bother my parents. Somewhere it was like, oh, I'm going to put people out. I'm going to do all this stuff. So I went to the hospital, and I told the hospital everything that was wrong with me, pretty much. I told them what was wrong with me. And the doctor, now looking back at it, his ego fought so hard that I was right, because he was like, maybe it's diverticulitis and they made me do whatever. Maybe it's something in your ovaries, made me do whatever. And I'm like, it's my spleen. And so then they finally gave me a CAT scan, and he was so bent that he made me do this battery of other tests, and I was right about it being my spleen, that he didn't call for a CAT scan with contrast. So this is where I'm like, people, get a CAT scan with contrast. I did all this. I laid up for a week. I went to the doctor. They told me on my last visit, your white blood cell count is really high, but everything seems fine. It's probably just because you injured your spleen somewhere and it's healing. And I'm like, I never even watched Grey's Anatomy or ER, but I know what those shows are. And even in my little numbskull brain of like television medicine, white blood cell count. Hello. That's like, girl,
Something's wrong.
something's up. So life goes on. I kind of go about my life, and I am working, and it's getting into season. So my hours at work are picking up, and being on my feet more is picking up. And I don't even realize the amount of calories I'm intaking is going down, 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 because no one's with me all day. So apparently my wife, over like the weekend or 72-hour period of time, she started watching me like, what's this bitch eating? Because I wasn't even aware of it. And so on the final day, when I was like, I told a couple of friends that this was going on, and they were like, go to the hospital. I mean, seriously, I was like, I'm going to leave a podcast on my computer. So if I die, it'll be there. And that way I can say goodbye to my audience. Like, I really thought I was going to die. And I had such a fear of going into the hospital because the pain had gotten so bad. I looked in the mirror and I was so skinny. Like, I don't know where it happened. Like, all my muscle had left, and I was down to like under 120 pounds, which I'm not like super tall, but I'm like 5'8". And so under 120 pounds was no bueno. And my skin was gray. And walking into the emergency room, I had the biggest fear. I actually had to go to the emergency room this last week for a different reason, for a friend. And I had to verbalize that same fear again that I verbalized that day. But it was like, oh, I'm jumping out of a plane right now. I might as well be bungee jumping. This is my biggest fear, to walk through these doors. Because I knew 100% everything that happened. I wasn't surprised about it. I just didn't think I was ever going to come out. I just thought I was going to go in and die in there.
Damn.
And when I went in, it was kind of so fast, and they didn't even do surgeries the size I had, because I had to get a splenectomy. My spleen exploded into my stomach and part of my pancreas, and I always forget the other thing. One other organ they had to chop up. And so I laid there on a bunch of drugs, and I was cut all the way open from kind of like my breastbone all the way down to my belly button. And they chopped me up, and I was on all the drugs. And somewhere in between the time, they came in and told me that I had stage 4 cancer. I didn't remember any of that. I was on drugs, and I don't ever do those kind of drugs. So when I got home and it kind of settled on me, it was like almost the darkest. I never been so dark in my whole life. It's almost like I had to go through all the emotions. Like, I realized depression's different than suicidal, and both those things are different than actually dying. And all those things are different than just sadness, and all those things are different than madness. So I had to go through like the plethora of these things. And the harder thing for me to deal with is that, and it's, ironic, not ironic that I'm here. The hardest thing mentally for me to deal with wasn't the cancer. It was the chemo.
Yes, I could see why. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because you mentioned in your solo episode, and I'm not surprised about that this was your view, but like, hello, you're not even taking Vax. You're totally against all that, way more natural. And then I put myself in your position, because I was like, yeah, man, what would you do? It's just like you're put up with this ultimatum. And so it's just like, I wanted to just talk to you about that, and see what was the process. Was it more like, all right, I have cancer. They told me I have to do chemo. Was there a conflict? Did you not think about it at all? Because it was like, hey, if this is what I have to do to survive, I'm just going to do it, whatever. So I'd love to hear that, because I've always I try and keep my mind open with this kind of stuff and not judge anybody for what they do, because you never know what it's like until you're in that position, until you have to make that decision. And there is space for allopathy and what they do. It's just how they do it that is so fucked up because they do have things that can help people, can save lives or whatever. I just think that it gets so protocol and skewed and everything else that everything just gets dumped into this one bucket that it's totally evil, but there are things in there that can, like, literally in your case, save a life. So if you wanted to kind of go into that process a little bit, because I imagine it was difficult to have to weigh out these things.
I'm pretty organic. I eat some trash occasionally. Like I'll, eat Twizzlers, or I'll, put Red 40 in my body. I hit like vapes, like whatever this oil is in these pot pens. That is one of the dreamy things about it, is that I smoke weed for a living. That's one of the dreamy things, is like, oh, I'll get my medical card. This is fantastic. But not that it ever mattered, but I'm like, yeah, I will get my medical card. And it was just getting told that I had stage 4, and I knew how I looked and felt. And it was so jarring and so, I mean, I felt like I was at death's door and that the chemo was going to kill me. That's how I felt. But I didn't really have another option. Like, I was so far gone, and it was all through my lymph nodes. And so to not have another option, and then I looked at my nurse practitioner, and I'm like, because I refused, my biggest fear was that I died from chemo. Not that I would die of my cancer and that would be the reason, but I just felt like I don't want to lose all my hair, feel like shit, feel nauseous every day, go through all that stuff, and then also die. Like, I'd rather just enjoy what I have left in the body that I have and see what happens. And so I looked at my nurse practitioner and I was like, do I have a chance at surviving this? Like, am I dying? And she's like, I'd never treat you with this if I thought we couldn't fix it. And because what I was about to go into was the harshest chemo. And she's like, I wouldn't do this if I didn't think we could fix it. And she had said something to me when I was like, how did I get this? Like, is it Teflon? Is it Monsanto? Because it's not genetic. Like, how did I get this? And she's like, typically we see it in, Vietnam vets from Agent Orange. And I'm like, I don't know. Where does it come from? Is it from, sitting in a puddle? Is it from being by an electrical plant? Is it from, she's like, I don't know. Maybe it's from chemtrails. And so when she said this to me, I was like, I'm going to trust her a little more. Yeah. Like, I had some great nurses, like, because I was the youngest chick in the room every time. And I think because they saw me so frail and actually got to see me like gain weight as I go and get healthier as I go, because the thing that took it out of me was my rotten old spleen. So it was just like, once my spleen was out of me, and I actually found it a benefit that I never put medicine in my body before. So it was like my body took to it, but I do not give the credit to the chemo. I made a decision in my brain that I was going to live. Like, I made a decision that I was going to live, and I had the worst. I was in my human flesh and I was dying. And then I called my homegirl, who is my Reiki practitioner. And she was like, I'm there with you. I've already been working on you, da, 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 da. And I listened to her. She would give me like meditations, and then I would listen to her while I meditated. And so I even listened to her like when I had to do my CAT scans, because I was super claustrophobic. And one of the key things she said was that I needed to allow in all the prayers and all the good thoughts and all the good energy. And like, people spend time cutting ties all the time, but they never, like, people have been praying for you your whole life, and you've never accepted it. And people have been wishing good stuff on you your whole life, but you never accepted it. And people want the best for you your whole life, but you never like allowed it in. So it was like sitting there and allowing that energy in, and then knowing I lived in my body. I had to honor the cancer as it died. And I had to honor old me as I still died. And that was the hard part. Like, even sitting now, it's almost like that episode that I did, it's like I've had longer from the drug trip now. And so I still did die. I'm still here. I'm a new version of myself. I'm a better version of myself. I think I'm kinder and have a little more patience. I'm a little more in my feminine, and I'm still a work in progress. But I feel like I didn't heal myself alone, and chemo didn't heal me. It was really because we're magic, and I had to remember that. And I had to like remember I was attached to everyone. And even like simple, like let my mom do for me, let my sister do for me, let my friends do for me in whatever way they could. And it was all going to be different. Like some people, they're like, I don't have anything to give you. I want to clean your house. Some people have all the money to give me, and they were like, I just want to, send send you gifts and send you. And some people were just like, I want you to have flowers in your house. And some people were just like, one of the greatest things, every single one of my lady friends got me a blanket. Every single one sent me a blanket. And so I must have 20 house blankets like in my house now. And all the blankets kind of seem like their personality.
Oh, I love that.
I love it too. It's like,
that is so awesome.
So I would not have it any other way. I'm so grateful for my experience. I feel like, to be careful what you, ask for. It's like I was kind of ready for my level up of whatever the next stage of that meant. I just did not think it was going to be all this, but I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, I love hearing it. And, I think I love hearing that it was allowing people to like let them do things for you, because that's really hard for a lot of people, myself included, to have to just allow someone to want to help you sometimes, or to not wait on you hand and foot, but you know what I mean? It's like sometimes it feels there's like an ego thing that happens with it. Like, no, I can do it. I got it, or whatever, And I think that's a big part of like people's illnesses in general, is just not being able to surrender to that and allow it to happen. And I think that's probably one of the things that allowed you to get well as quickly as you did, because that's the other thing that's about your story, is that in the grand scheme of it, how many months? So it started in like February, but like how long was your actual chemo treatment?
I got out of the hospital February 14th, and which is kind of everything's so ironic in timing. February 14th, if you were to get pregnant on that day, you would actually be a Scorpion. And so I'm a Scorpio on November 21st, and that's the 9 months. So I got out of the hospital. That was my date. I was kind of like reborn into my new body that I had to rebuild up again from scratch like a little friggin' baby, and learn how to walk again and use the bathroom and bathe myself. And it was kind of like a whole little journey. So that was February 14th. And I finished my last chemo treatment, I think like June 22nd.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's quick, and your mentality and your intentions really help with it too, obviously. And that, as you said, we are magic, because one of the things I try and remind myself of when anything's going on is that our bodies are literally built to heal. And sometimes we need help from external forces or whatever, but it's like we are literally built to heal. And if you have that mentality and you keep that in your mind and your heart, you're going to heal faster than you would if you're thinking that we're just like this machine that gets worked on and then you get a tune up and it's okay, whatever. You don't have to think about it until you have to think about it. And I think that that's one of the humbling experiences of being sick with anything, something that takes you out to the point where you can't do stuff, where you're laid out and it's like, no, I need help because I just can't do it. I think if you use your illness correctly or use the lessons from it correctly, these are the kinds of conclusions like you're talking about that you end up coming to. And one of the other things you talked about in your episode was because you understand alchemy, you were able to understand this process that you had to go through much easily. And when you said that, that also like sent chills through my spine, because you're right. And that is totally one of the things that people like ourselves and lots of people who are listening, when you understand these things about how the universe works, you're able to put it onto some of the worst situations and still realize that no, this has to happen. And I'm going through this transmutation, or we have to transmute this so that I can transform and become the new version or whatever. And so, what were some of your thoughts that you had surrounding that? Like, was that a constant thing that came through your mind, or were you just like, in hindsight, you were able to see that, or was it something that you could feel working throughout the whole process?
I felt like when I first got out of the hospital, and as probably the anesthesiology, like all those chemicals were leaving my body, and also the Dilaudid, and they gave me tons of painkillers. And I realized really quickly in my body, like I heard the little voice of addiction in my head that was like, I'm bored. Let's take another painkiller. And I was like, and I never, out of the drugs I've dabbled with in my life, it's never been those kind. So I was like, shit. I don't think I'm allowed to take these anymore. Like very quickly in it. So I was like, I'm going to have to raw dog this. Like this is just going to be, but pain doesn't scare me. Like it like I'm just, whatever. That's from trauma itself that I've realized. I used to think I had the highest pain threshold, but I realized that's trauma.
Dude, yes, totally. It's totally a trauma response indeed.
I forgot the whole shit in question now. I was thinking like my high pain threshold.
No, you're good. Alchemy and your understanding of it and how it helped you to understand, what was going on with you and why it was happening.
I feel like I needed to let everybody work their magic. Like I knew what my magic was, and like I have friends that are from every religion in the world. And I just had to let them settle in their religion and do for me what their blessing was for me. And it wasn't like part of it, the selfishness of when I got home and I'm LARPing like, I have cancer. I just had a surgery, because you start leaning into this character and you're like, I'm depressed. I'm the saddest person on the planet. Who has a worse life than me? I'm just going to die. I'm going to cut off all my friends and I'm going to cut off all my family and I'm just going to die in this room alone. Or one day I'll come back and then I'll be better. See you in 6 months. See you in a year. Like I was just going to do like almost bratty, but it was like, part of me, some of the people in my life that I loved the most had so much loss in their life. I didn't want them to have more loss. So it was like I was going through all these things myself in my brain, and I pretty much just had one I was shit up until my first chemo, and the first week that passed, I thought 3 weeks had passed. Like I was kind of going a little delusional. I was hallucinating a little, and I was feeding myself the worst advice. I was staying trapped in my own brain. I was just getting mad and angry. I was cutting off people. And I had really one awful night. Like I was just going low, 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 low. And then I was in the bottom of the darkest well I had ever been in my life. And I attempted to call one of my friends who she's just not burdened by weight. Like she's like the one person I knew that could handle me at my darkest. And I didn't want to put it on a lot of people because I realized in life it scared some of my friends. Like I was always the person they could depend on. So when they saw me at my darkest, it like startled them a little. So she was a friend I could kind of put it on, but she didn't answer. And I had this separate room that I was laying in because like my animals, and I didn't want to sweat chemo in my real bed. And so I had this separate room I was staying in. And so I went and got in bed with my wife. And she usually, like, I'm always the like more masculine energy with this shit. And she usually, my panic would panic her. But she just kind of like totally laid into her masculine and totally was just like, and I couldn't be held because I was cut up and I was so injured. And my body, I had the riggers. That's what I think they call it, where you just have violent shakes. And so I was like almost hallucinating, and I was in my darkest dark. And I really thought I was dying, like in the moment. And then something was like, okay, you're dying. Everybody's dying. Are you going to let this be your legacy? Like, are you going to let this person be the person that gets to like fill your body in its last days? Like, do you live here or does cancer live here? Is this your vessel or is this a different vessel? And then it was the next day, I felt like I had the worst drug trip in the world, where you almost like a DMT trip, where I had to sit back and think about it. And it was because I knew where I was. There was no way, like I'd already died. And there was nothing that would ever seem that dark to me as the feeling of me actually dying the night before. And I realized even if I did die, I didn't want to be a cunt. I'm sorry. I'm not allowed to say that here.
You're good. You're
like,
good.
okay. Like, I just didn't want to, even if I had no hair and I had no eyebrows and I had no eyelashes and I was super scrawny, I still wanted to be Chaney at the end. I didn't want to be Chaney with cancer.
Right.
And so it was like knowing that I was in this super dark place, like I was shattered. I felt like I have nowhere else to be but create the healthiest version of myself that's ever been. And it seems so crazy to think, okay, I'm missing some organs. Okay, I'm healing from cancer. Okay, but I'm like, but what about mentally and physically and all the things? Like all the things. And I realized like my feminine was so broken, and having everybody take care of me, and like it wasn't like just me with cancer. My mom's daughter had cancer, and my wife's wife had cancer, and my sister's sister had cancer, and my best friend's best friend had cancer. And once I got out of my head about Chaney has cancer and I could empathize with all of them, letting them do for me and bless me and honor me, it was easier. And that made them feel good. And they just wanted to hang out with me. They didn't care. They weren't judging my bald head or my lack of eyebrows. And letting them be a part of my healing journey helped me heal even that much quicker. So, yeah, I think that I definitely lack joy, which is held, your spleen is like a big representation of that in my life up until then. And I definitely had a broken feminine. Like the only way for me to allow nurturing was gonna that was the easiest way I could learn my lesson.
Right. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. These are such good insights. And it's like, obviously, who wants to hear that someone went through something like this? But I'm like happy to hear that these are the conclusions that you've been able to come to, because I think there's so many people out there too that when you don't understand or don't have the time to reflect on how life might actually really work, you might go through something like this, make it to the other side, but weren't able to integrate these deep, important lessons, which could lead you to just further problems down the road because you weren't able to see that. And to be able to, come to the conclusion too, and having your broken feminine, that's really interesting. And then to see that your wife was able to step up into her masculine, it's like you being in that state helped her to heal something. Do you know what I mean? It's like we are these balancing acts for people, the people that we really care about in our lives and we have meaningful relationships with. When the relationship is in flow, we are scales for one another. And so it's like, you were able to bring that about for your wife, and now moving forward, both of you will be more balanced because of it, and I think that's one of the most beautiful things that you can really do for another person, is to help bring balance to their life, really, because it's hard to find. Yeah. It's hard to find folks that want to achieve balance or maintain balance or who bring balance, just because of how a lot of things are these days. So, yeah. Man, kudos. I love the fact that you're open to sharing this too, because this is going to help other people too. I think all anytime we share, I think some of the rougher moments of our lives, it not only helps other people, but it helps us too, because it's just like you're helping yourself to be more comfortable with who you really are, because all of these events, they are here for a reason to make us better people, and you're totally on the path, and it's a beautiful thing to see and hear for sure.
I think a lot of dudes, I think this is more of a dude thing and maybe moms too, like where, you have all the stuff to do with the kids. And so, you just don't even have time to think of yourself. But I think a lot of men, it's like they have a bum knee or they hurt themselves at work. But who are they going to tell their kids? They don't burden anyone at home. And, I think that they're like, oh, I'll just put a band-aid on it. Oh, like, how did you hurt yourself? I don't even know. I don't know how I hurt myself. You have bruises on yourself and you're like, I don't know how I did that. And I wish I knew who told me this so I could give them credit. But they were like, Chaney, you don't know how you did that bruise? And I was like, no. And they were like, you don't stop and honor yourself after you hurt yourself? Like, you should be like, oh, I'm so sorry, leg. Like, you treat me good all the time. I should be a little more careful. And I was like, gosh, now that you mention it, like I never do that. I just am like, oh, in my way. Like, keep going, keep going. And I was thinking that intention of really treating our body like if it was a machine, if it was like a tractor and I bent a blade, I wouldn't just keep driving my tractor. I'd get off. I'd know where I hit something in the lawn, where it was. I'd fix my blade. It would be a whole thing. And so I feel like somewhere in all of our masculines, we don't treat ourselves with that feminine. And I think that, ladies and men, it's not even a sex thing. I just think having to give myself baths and take my time to bathe and even shave my head, like when I first took off my chemo hair and like take that power back, even though it seemed like such a masculine thing to do, it was very feminine in the mirror. It felt very vulnerable and very, shedding in this way. And so I do think those kind of giving yourself grace a little bit, I think those kind of is something that more people need to do. Like be a little kinder to yourself. Like guys might be like, I like 100% cotton. I like this. Like they might treat themselves in those ways. And they like every once in a while I'll wear a cologne, but it's just like, no, you're allowed to have the nicest socks. Like if that's your thing, you're allowed to have that. If you do the lawn all the time, you can have the comfiest shirt while you do the lawn. You don't have to wear your worst shirt that you get sunburn and it's just like these little things. Like you're allowed to do that for yourself. Like I think that's what I've learned so much, where I used to feel guilty for treating myself in ways like a little bit of shame or like I didn't earn it. And really, that's like an inverted way to think. Like we should be working. Like they have us like, oh, the reason we don't feel like we earn it is because you're marketing, sitting on your computer job all day. Dee, 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 dee. So it feels like internally our animal doesn't earn it. But that mental stress, we earn some stuff.
Yeah, totally. And I agree with you too with the guilt thing too. Like, and I think society does that to us in some weird way. It's like there's so much stuff like treats and this and that, but then when you do it, you're supposed to feel shame or whatever. Like I'll always remember, I think about this from time to time when these sorts of subjects come up, because I was at a grocery store, Natural Grocers, and I'm standing in the line and they have obviously like their candy section, all the little tchotchke things that you can buy right before you get to the register, right? And I'm looking at it and they have some candy bar called like Little Secrets or something. And I'm like, ew.
creepy little candy bar.
I know, like Little Secrets. And then I'm like looking at it and I'm like, oh, they're like mini little chocolate things or whatever. And so it's like, okay, you're going to treat yourself, but you're literally going to buy something called My Little Secret, as though you treat yourself and then you're not going to tell anyone and you hide it. And then it's called My Little Secret. And I was just like, wow, that's like such a mind fuck and gross.
You're allowed to eat it.
No, like
You're
you can eat
allowed.
it. It doesn't have to be a secret either. Guess what? So when you bring that kind of stuff up, it's really funny because I think about that and I'm like, damn, that is some weird programming shit right there. And then I don't know, it's just weird. I've even heard stories of fighters. I can't remember the UFC fighter who it was, but he like wasn't losing weight while during his weight cut, and his dietitian guy was like, what's going on, okay, run me through what you're doing, whatever. And his trainer ended up finding like candy wrappers or something, and he was like, is this your wrapper? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, well, dude, that's why you're not losing weight. It's like, just tell me though, like tell me that it's you wanted to have a candy bar. It's all good. You're a human. It's cool. And I think that there's this weird dichotomy of this shaming thing with yourself, and then you can't tell your partner that you had an ice cream, or you shouldn't tell someone because it's bad for you. So yeah, that's really interesting because it creates conflicts. And
That's so funny. At my river here, there's old men, like they all sit at this part because it's so pretty, like the view. And if you look down the row of all these old men, they're all eating like McDonald's or Burger King or Dunkin' Donuts or some shit in their car that their wife is like no bueno with them having it. So they're all sneaking it at the river.
dude, it's so weird and funny. Oh my God.
But
Wow.
part of it, I think I had a friend once, and she, she was like juicy. She was a little juicy of a girl. And she walked by me in her bathing suit, and I was like, hey, you don't have any cellulite on your ass. Like, I'm pretty impressed. Like, like for like her butt was juicy and it had no cellulite on it. And she like turned around and looked at her own butt and she goes, well, I never think bad thoughts about myself. And that's what I think cellulite is. And I was
Bingo.
just like, I like that. And then it makes me think with this guilt, if it's all a transmutation, we're already eating all this GMO poison garbage and we're cooking it on bad things and eating it with plastic and drinking it out of plate. Like we're doing everything bad. But could the guilt energy and the shame energy also add to blowing us up? How we're becoming an enormous society. Like, not only do we have all the hormones and the steroids and all this stuff to blow up our vegetables and blow up our pigs and blow us up, but it's like adding that of like anything you eat. Are you going to feel bad about it afterward?
Yep.
How does it run through you?
100%. 100%. And I'm sure you know about it, or maybe you've looked into it more, but German New Medicine, are you familiar with the concept of German New Medicine?
Mm-mm.
So German New Medicine is basically, and I bring this stuff up all the time, but it is one of my bingo light bulb things that goes off. So it's basically the concept that the issues that arise in us health wise are usually trauma responses. They're conflict shock responses. So, and it can happen quickly, or it can be something that manifests over time. But exactly what you're saying is totally a German New Medicine belief that it actually doesn't really have anything to do with the actual food you're eating. It's the emotions that are connected with it, and the emotions that you use to describe how you feel after eating it, or what have you. Not to say that there aren't certain foods that affect people in different ways, but it's literally the guilt that you attach to it. So if you're going to treat yourself and have ice cream, don't sit there for 5 hours afterwards, like wanting to puke or telling yourself you're an asshole or you're going to get fat or whatever, because then you are. It's like you kind of are what you eat, you are what you think, in the same way. And German New Medicine has that whole thing kind of on lockdown. And that's one of the things too, that when I was like thinking about what we could talk about and stuff, and I wanted to bring it up because the things that are attached to the spleen and the lymphatic system all kind of play into like what may have happened, or it could be like an unlocking thing for you of like, oh shit, that might be something that, to look into. Because typically, like when you have something with the lymph nodes, it's anything with the lymph, it's usually like a self-devaluation conflict. And so maybe it was like, and your spleen is usually linked to some kind of blood conflict. So whether it was something that happened like a long time ago or recently or during the time of this happening, what I found was interesting is that the spleen thing happened for you first, which may have made you feel like maybe you devalued your body, or maybe it was like a devaluation. And then something comes up with the lymphatic system that is a devaluation conflict, if this makes sense. And I'm doing a total surface level, but I wanted to just bring it up because I really think that the way that we look at our bodies and the emotions we have attached to it says so much about what ends up popping up and how it pops up. And there's theories for all of it, but to me it's been kind of like I've had so many breakthroughs with it when I've looked into what the German New Medicine Association is with certain things that happen, and I'm like, holy shit, that is like spot on. There's been so many things that come through that way. And so anyway, I had to bring it up because we went to that section of just like thinking about the guilt associated with food, because I do think you're right. I think that is one of the reasons why there is so much of the obesity, and it is other things too. Like there's a bunch of shit food, but I don't know. I just think that our emotions and our intentions have way more, like they just hold so much more weight than what we're told throughout life. And
I don't think I ever honored my vessel. Even when I was eating well, even when I was working out, even when I was like, I would run no matter when I ran. And I would always be disappointed in myself after my run. Like, you didn't do as good as you should. Like, anytime I worked out, it was always like, you didn't go as far, you didn't lift as much, you didn't like, I really, and in a weird way of my masculine, it was like I compared myself to men in an unachievable comparison. So it was just like, I'm never going to be able to lift my wife up and carry her over the threshold, no matter how much weight I lift, no matter how much, like, it's just not. So it was just, even like saying that now, and it seems so silly, but it's just like, I'm never going to be in the vessel that like I see myself as, like, in my strong head and my strong heart. And it's not a masculine vessel. It's just, oh, okay. Like, it's not a man. It's just like, oh, okay. Like, I never honored myself. Even when I was young, like, I wasn't skinny enough, or I wasn't, like, girly like the other girls, or I wasn't like, I always felt like kind of in between. And so I didn't realize how long that slow shame and slow, like, treating my body bad and slow, like, not enjoying anything, like not really, just getting lost in something like a kid again. It had really been a long time. Like, even just watching a show, like even being laid up, I realized I found myself watching all these old shows from my childhood and from my teenage years. It was like almost re-implanting new memories on things. And allowing, like, a weird part is my relationship with my mother. How, like, my father's passed away, years back, but my relationship with my mother, like, I would say she was always supposed to be the mom of me at this age. Like, we just never clicked before, ever in our life. And I don't blame her for it. I think I was taken from her very young, like, premature. And I went to a hospital and was in an incubator for a while. So like, she almost already had to mentally let me go. And then she got me back.
Okay.
And I'm her middle child. And so I think, and I'm kind of, like, during all this, she's like, you've always been so independent. I always knew you were going to be okay. Like, I didn't know you needed this other stuff. And so even us being vulnerable with each other in that way, and like, oh, I'm friends with my siblings now. I'm friends with my mother now. I'm friends with my friends again. I'm friends with my wife again. And I think that has been so healing in so many ways. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, man. Definitely. No, that's huge. I mean, I think even then, and then realizing maybe we weren't friends to ourselves as much as we could have been. How many times
Totally.
You look back at stuff, just like you're saying. I feel like there's some crossover with how I've felt about myself and what you're saying, especially with like the running or the working out or the dieting. And like, how many times do you hear people like they look at a photo of themselves when they're 35 and they're like, damn, I thought I was fat at 35. Like that, this photo, I thought I was fat in this photo, and they're not fat, but in their mind they are, or whatever, and in the end it's like a self-devaluation conflict of just like anything you do is just not good enough for your own self. So then how can it be good for anyone else, and blah, blah, blah. And so I think, yeah, just being best friends with ourselves so that we can be best friends with the people that we really care about is so important. Just like the whole concept or the cliche of, if you don't love yourself, you can't love someone else,
Yeah.
and as you go through life, you really find out that that's seriously the case. And like, that is one of the greatest lessons, I think, in life.
It usually is a mirror. Everything's a
Mhm.
mirror. It's projection
Totally.
and reflection. And, everyone that is in front of you, that's the avatar. They're chosen by the universe because the universe knows you'll hear the thing you're supposed to hear from them. It's like they're the avatar with the puzzle piece for you.
Right.
It's such a like wild ride, and almost like your job is like you have this little internal metal detector, and everybody out there has a little piece of like a little piece of like jewelry for you, and you just have to find it in them. But it's like kindness and being in your kid self. And I think I spent too much time in my adult self. I think I like leaning into my weird and leaning into like, none of us know how much time we have here. Like, none of us know what is going to be next for us. But it really can be whatever we want. Like, it can be whatever we want. And I think everybody too, like, they've lost people out there from cancer. Like, it's such a, in the medical industry, I would say, like, has messed up more than it's helped. But I do think no matter the sickness, like cold hitting your toe, like whatever the pain that you have to go through, or like those internal things, I do believe in that way. Like, it happens for a reason, and you only get what you can handle bad, because on the other side of that bad always is so much good. Like, that's the alchemy. Always. It's like your machete is getting a little sharper. And so the next path of the jungle, when you think you're in a clearing, there's just another jungle ahead of you. It's going to have more amazing animals. It's going to have more beautiful waterfalls. And your machete is a little sharper, because the goal is that like you can cut clearing so that other people's path is a little easier. And there'll be things in that journey that you don't even have a machete for yet. And somebody else that you didn't even think knew what a machete was will have the sharpest machete in the world. And so that's where it's like a humbling that, for even myself, little miss know-it-all sometimes, it's a humbling of how much I didn't know. And then letting all the people I loved and trust and respected to give me a little bit of their knowledge, and seeing something like this, because I got to see people's fear and their trauma and not wanting to lose me, but also their full love. And the amount of knowledge and information and digging, and everybody had something. And so I did it all. I didn't care. Like, I didn't care where it came from. If it was their good idea, if it was something that helped their friend, I didn't care if it was beet juice. I didn't care if it was Rick Simpson oil. I didn't care if it was baking soda. I didn't care if it was chemo. I was like, I'm going to survive. I'm going to put all the good energy in me. My mom would be like, can I pray for you? And I'd be like, sure thing. Let's get your prayer on, Mom. And like, let me do my Reiki. Let me do my, so I don't know. It was pretty, even a bath. It seems so silly. Like giving myself a bath, like taking a bath. It's been so long since I took a bath. That's like the most female thing I think you can do.
I think so. And it's like one of the most healing things. And it's so simple. And most everybody has access to be able to take a bath. Most everybody. And I have to say too, like I have gained a deeper appreciation for baths recently myself, because I went through a horrific ear infection for almost a month, and I'm still like at the end of it. Like, it's still not all the way over. And I have the whole thing that I went through and everything else, which is doesn't really matter for this episode, but the one of my appreciations was for baths, because the thing that really accelerated my healing was taking super hot baths and just sweating my ass off, and then wrapping myself in towels and sweating more, and then taking a cold ass shower. And it was just like, whoa. I mean, this is one of the easier things you can do, but you don't think about it until you're like to a point where you're like, all right, what else can I do? What else do I do? And then it was like a bath. Well, that's simple enough. And then it was just like the breakthroughs of healing that came just literally from sitting in baths and wrapping myself and, taking the time to literally just sweat and allow things to come out of me that I had no idea that there was even so much liquid in me that could like keep coming out or whatever, and these little things that we forget about, that usually it's like a childish thing for a bubble bath or whatever. It's like, no. I even told Mario, I was
No,
like, you better be
holding your little
taking more
naked
baths.
knees.
Yeah, right.
Those are your knees. Like, they've been your knees in that bathtub for your whole life. Like, it's like just being in that position, it just made me feel like it's still my same body. It's the same body that it was when I was a little kid. It's going to be the same body, if I'm lucky 40 years from now. And so
Right.
it's just like, this is my body. I don't know how many times I'm going to be sitting in that bathtub. And even when the water wasn't in it, every day and every time I showered, because I couldn't stand the whole shower for a long time. Like, I couldn't stand up in the shower the whole time.
Mhm.
So every time I like sit on the ground, I was so tiny, hugging my little knees, but I would just like meditate a little better every day, a little better every day. And some days it wasn't physically better. Some days it was mentally better, but it was just a little better every day. And so I definitely think, sometimes one of my friends told me, Chaney, you are your own precious baby. You have to treat yourself that way. And that was like a really big way to see myself. Like, how would I treat my baby if my baby was going through this? How would I treat my friend if my friend was going through this? And so it was just like those little things. Like, I am my own precious baby. We're all our own precious babies.
Hell yeah.
We need to do that more.
That's great advice. I love that. And it's a lot of times, yeah, usually these little tidbits come from other people and you're like, "Oh shit. Yeah, of course." That makes so much sense. And it's those little things that someone might even not even think it's going to matter that much, but it could be like the thing that just unlocks yourself to deeper healing. And I love it. I love hearing all these little tidbits that came through for you like that, because those are the things that really matter, I think, at the end of the day.
Everybody showed out in like such cool ways. Like, nobody surprised me in anything that they did. Like, they were just, I don't know. I just looked around and I was like, oh my gosh. It almost overwhelmed me because any one of my friends, there was a point I was talking to a friend of mine on the phone and I was just like, I don't feel worthy of this. I don't feel worthy of being taken care of like this. I don't feel worthy of, like, I feel like I'm putting everybody out. And like, I was kind of shattered at the time. And my friend said, they're a reflection of your love. Like, all the love you've given, you have to let them give it back now. You do it for all of them. And I sat on that in like my darkest time, and each one of my friends that I thought of separately, and even like my family and my wife and everybody, I just thought they were so magic. And like the idea that I was a reflection of them, it filled me in a way that I can't even explain to you. Like, every single one of my friends, I started to think I have the most magical friend group in the whole world. I think I have the most special people around me. And then it made me feel even that much more worthy of like living and treating myself kindly, because it was just like, look at all these amazing people. I would want them to treat themselves the best, and here I'm not. And it was just like, oh, I'm magic too, and I'm filled with love too, and all these people that I think are so special in all these ways that I always put myself down, they don't love me because I'm think of the things I think of myself in my head. It's apparently I'm doing something right because all these really magical, awesome, loving people are around me.
Hell yeah. I love it. That's beautiful. I love the allowing the love to come back. That's a big one. That's huge because it goes back to that whole thing of not wanting to ask for the help or not realizing that it's time to receive instead of be projective, which all goes back to that theme that you were saying of just like the feminine was broken. It needed to be healed, and that projective versus receptive thing coming through as a theme for you really strongly is really interesting. And I really enjoy hearing like how this all panned out because there's so many little tidbits in here where I'm like, yeah, bingo, dude. That's exactly what's going on. And how much of it is, it's like, too, you can sit there and spin your wheels forever to try and like figure out like, why is this happening? Why is it happening? And sometimes it's just better to be like, it's happening. So what can I do right now, here and now, instead of trying to rack my brain to figure out like,
My Reiki practitioner said, "You are already healed. You just have to honor your journey." And so I replayed that over and over again in my head. I'm already healed. I just have to honor from here to there.
Yeah, I love that. That also kind of, just to bring it back to German New Medicine for just a tidbit, their whole thing is that when symptoms, when a tumor, when pain arises, that's actually the moment of healing. Like while you're in that part of it, a toothache or whatever it is, it's like you can almost like rest assured that whatever conflict created this or is contributing to it, you've already conquered. You've like gotten over it. And so now the body is bringing these symptoms to you as a sign of healing. And so there's like some comfort that comes from it. It's very strange. But when I learned that, I'm like, man, that like kind of, that like really to me makes a lot of sense that you were like, you're maintaining, your body's maintaining. And then maybe you had, you came to some conclusion. You didn't even realize that was actually a solution to a conflict that you had years ago. And then all of a sudden you're in this state of pain or a tumor arises. And that's like the sign that, okay, we're healing this now. And so it's very interesting. And I just recommend it for people who aren't familiar with it. If you're into alternatives of why we get sick, how we get sick. I hate the name German New Medicine. I feel like it needs a new name. God damn it. But, the concept behind it's also very Eastern. A lot of the same concepts. There's a lot of crossover with Eastern health philosophies and stuff like that. So, it's kind of a combination of things. But anyway, I just think that there's so much value in it. And when you start studying it and looking at yourself and your history, you're able to crack a lot of codes that you aren't able to crack with other things because you are bringing in the emotional, more spiritual side of things, which is so huge when it comes to our health, in my opinion. And all of these things we're talking about go like hand in hand with it, so it's an interesting little rabbit hole for sure.
Yeah, it's like I don't think Western medicine's the way. Even going through all of this, I don't think Western medicine's the way at all. And I do believe 100% of cancers are from them. Like, I pretty much believe 100% of sicknesses are from them. I don't think humans really get sick. I think you might get the sniffles because there's new pollens or there's dried leaves or there's dust. There's things like that you might get filled in your sinuses that might take a couple days to get out. I do think there are infections. Sometimes people could just get by things and that's healed with easy, like an easy penicillin. Like there's easy stuff that I do think, but that's not Western medicine. Setting a bone isn't Western medicine. There's things that I do think a medical professional is good for. I don't believe the indoctrinated doctors are them. I think you're better off finding a nurse. I think their oath is different.
Yes.
And I do think there's a conspiracy behind every single naturopath that was killed before all of Corona even happened. If you look at from probably like 2010 to 2020, I would guess conservatively 100 naturopaths were murdered in America. conservatively. And so when you look at everything that they were going to set up for lockdowns, and all of these people, we have Lyme, we have lupus, we have HIV, we have now like a vaccine autoimmune disorder. And so I'm like, of course they didn't want the natural pass. Of course they didn't want them around touting off. And so they give us, they dangle out the one doctor we're all allowed to talk about, and he makes his rounds on all the shows, and this is the only doctor, and everybody else is a voodoo doctor. Everybody else is, whatever. But here's the one doctor that he's the conspiracy doctor you guys can all talk to, that he's the only guy that's saying to do all this protocol and blah, blah, blah. When I don't know how much, if you were a doctor and you played along with this thing and you've already been injecting my kid with needles for however many decades, how can I trust you? You don't learn about vaccines in school, and you sure as shit don't learn about nutrition. So if you don't know about nutrition on the stuff that can keep me out of this office, and my body's so compartmentalized now that if somebody wants to work on this hand, it's different than somebody that wants to work on this eye, and it's a different profession if you want to work on these teeth. So it's just like, I'm NASA. Like, my body's NASA now. So how could anyone know what anyone's doing? It's not a general practitioner that saw you and me and our kids and our kids' kids. It's not the person that knows how our family eats and they've been over to our house because of house calls. It's not the same profession that it used to be. It's Ferraris and marketing, and they're the same ones that gave us the opioid crisis, and they're the same ones that gave us, the cancer crisis, and they're the same ones with the HPV and the infertility, and they're the same ones that just spread us all through this. So it's just like, how much longer, like the fool me once, shame on me, fool me again. It's like, how much longer are we going to do this with the indoctrinated doctors that we pretend they're better than us at all? And I tell everyone, do your own research, look up your shit yourself, look up your symptoms before you go there. Like, if you can't be your own advocate, they're not there to help you. They make money off every time they refer you to somebody else, and they get money every time they get referred. If they're sending you to home health care, they get a referral. If they send you a certain medication, they get a referral. And people are buying them. They're allowed to spend a certain amount of money on them. And they have all these marketers coming in their office. Where does that money come from? Insurance? Insurance is a scam. It's like the amount of bad medicine on top of bad medicine. And then you could have a good doctor that comes and says, this is the best thing for Michelle. And then you go and your insurance says, but it's not the cheapest thing for us. So it's just like, what's the cheapest thing? Poison and radiation. That's the cheapest thing for your insurance to pay for. So yeah, I think all of medicine's pretty disgusting. And but their symbols are all over it. Like, we see their snakes and we see their staffs, and I think it's very plain to see, like, doctor indoctrinated. That means you went through all the medication. And you like to play God. You're excited about it.
Yeah, there's this power thing. And what a great point about the naturopaths being killed off before, we have the lockdowns and the whole shenanigan thing going on. That I've never thought of that before, but that's a great point. And, I feel the exact same way. And I think that there's, God, it's such a catch-22. It's such a weird situation that we're all kind of put in and faced with when it comes to how Western medicine is operated and the options that we're given and how compartmentalized it is and how much of standard of care it is. And we're looked at as, like cars, a machine that receives a tune-up and then you don't have to worry about it for 6 months. Our animals are treated that way too. If you're taking, if you're going to a vet that doesn't have a holistic system in mind, dude, same thing is happening to them as well. And it's really unfortunate. And it's kind of like you get chewed up and spit out in this weird, strange way.
I have a trigger with that flea medication everyone puts between their animals' backs, like their shoulder blades. It triggers me because I'm like, so you think there is a healthy version of something that you could put between your animal's shoulder blades that bleeds into their skin and lasts 30 days, that anytime a flea or tick bites it, it dies? You think it doesn't affect their internal organs? And everyone's like, I swear to you, my dogs and cats live significantly longer than anybody else's dogs and cats that I know. It's not because I can't afford it. It's because there's other ways to treat it. And flea season, like cold and flu, is a season. It doesn't happen all year. And everybody's putting this stuff between their animal shoulder blades. And I would say your animal's dying of kidney failure, liver failure, all this weird kind of stuff that they're like, oh, we've seen this skyrocket in X amount of time. Has it been since you were putting poison between their shoulder blades for fleas? Because does it help at all? And the rabies shot should probably only be given, if at all, once every 5 years. It's like they already give that too much and they try to get you back in. Oh, heartworms and all these dewormers and all these parasitic cleanses. You can get all those and do all those naturally. You don't need to go to the vet for them. And there are things, this is another thing that I will say though. I would bet that 90% of people's animals, dogs right now, especially if it's a small dog, is walking around with a urinary tract infection. And I would bet that 60% of women are.
Yeah. That's a really good one. Dude, yes. Okay. Yes. And the thing too,
you're like, let me get this one off.
I know. I'm like, oh man. Okay. And there's so many reasons for these things. Okay. So when I hear the UTI, in pets, I always first think of what are you feeding them? If you're feeding them dry kibble and you're doing the thing and it's set it and forget it, that's definitely contributing. And then you have the whole like territorial conflicts that come into it, which is more the German new medicine thing. So a UTI would be your body, or you're pissed off about something. What are you pissed off about? And you're, you have a territorial conflict with whatever it is, and how many animals, dude, they are territorial beings. So if they're being put into situations where shit is, popping off and they aren't able to have clear boundaries, or they're not clear about things or what have you, there's all these sorts of factors that play into it. But yes, the UTI, and it's in cats too. And that was one of the things that we learned early on with our guy, who rest in peace, Carl. But like, it was in male cats, the amount of male cats that have UTIs and the crystals that, clog their urethra, it's through the roof. And then they're being treated with antibiotics and things like that, which sort of helps, but they're on all these shitty diets and it's never considered and all this stuff. And I think one of my biggest triggers is to hear someone go, oh, it's just a dog, it's just a cat. I'm like, dude, fuck you. No, it's so much more than that. They are spiritual beings just like we are. And to see how they're kind of just like thrown away or thrown into this like generalization of it's just an animal, or whatever. I'm just like, wow, dudes, you guys like that type of mentality. I don't think you deserve to like have a pet, in my opinion. And wow, we could go off on a whole tangent on all this stuff and how things are treated. It's just like, whoa, dude.
It's even their food, on the back of all pet food, it is way more calories than your animal needs. But because they got sued before for malnutrition, now they just put all this huge amount of caloric intake. So if you give what your animal size is by the back of the pet food bag, no matter what your pet food is, your animal's going to get fat. But then your fat animal needs to go to the vet more and now its joints hurt. There's like a big chance that it's going to tear its ACL, MCL, whatever kind of CLs in its knee. Like all this stuff goes down, hip dysplasia for bigger dogs. But it's the same as Americans. Why would you ever expect to see a huge, fat, obese American and a skinny, well-maintained diet dog?
Right.
Like, it would be absurd because they're not walking. They're not walking their dog. So it's just, I think all the medicine, and then don't even get me started on dentistry. No.
Oh, God.
But no, I just think that they've done all this crazy. Everywhere's trying to make money. There's insurances for everything. You never own your car. You never own your home. You always have to pay these taxes and these bullshit frauds, and everybody wants their hand in your pocket. Like when we were growing up, if somebody would have told us each one of our phones was going to be an extra $100 a month, we would have been like, absurd. And then they were like, well, look at minimum wage is going up. Cool, dude. Eggs are $8. Cool, dude. Milk's $8 a gallon. Like, it's like the idea of even the fakery of inflation, and then the amount of levels, the whole thing just feels absurd on absurd on absurd on absurd, that maybe I wouldn't have been so traumatized if our whole country didn't lock down and mask up. Like maybe
Right.
I would have gone to the emergency room sooner if I didn't have to live through shenanigans because of we were in a silent war. So it just feels like part of it is like, geez, I don't know. I want to be like, oh, COVID, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm like, when did they start poisoning our food? When did they start poisoning our brains? They probably injected all of our moms with something we don't know about, and that's in our eggs.
Yeah. Dude, totally. It's just like kind of trying to figure out the real history of anything. It's like how do you even begin? You know, we can speculate, we can tap in, we can channel a piece of land and try and really get some deep answers. We can try and talk to our ancestors, you know, about questions we have and things like that. But how are we really going to know when it all began, when it all ends, what the deal is? And I think like that's part of the whole thing of just standing in your purpose and making sure you're taking care of you so that you can, I don't know, like have the clearest, brightest mind to be able to not allow it to get so stuck in when did it all start. It's like kind of what I said earlier is like, it's happening now.
It's
So
happening.
it's happening.
Yeah, it's
And
happening.
it's just like we have to be able to be on our best in our best place so that we can just make the right calculated decisions, you know, so that we don't fall into the category of everybody else that's just like kind of I don't know, the obese person that's not walking their dog, you know, and I'm not just trying to say that, but it's like
No.
the example that we were
No, I feel like
going
we're
with.
not allowed to talk about it. Like we're not.
No.
There's certain things in our society because of politically correct that I feel like it takes a woman like me to be like, this trans agenda is bullshit.
Right.
Like it takes the person closest to the thing to be the first to say this is bullshit, and then everybody else is like, whew, thank you, this is bullshit. And so I feel like it's like as Americans, as somebody who's been everywhere on the scale, I'm gonna say America has a weight problem, and it has something is going on that isn't just our fault. Like, yes,
Right.
we're traumatized, we have eating disorders, we have all the things, but then they're also doing something to us that even when I'm standing next to like an 18-year-old now, I feel like their bones. Remember how, like, I said this the other day, and I like, remember when we were growing up and they'd be like, oh, I'm not fat, I'm just big boned.
Yes.
But
I remember that.
Yeah. But
Boy, do I.
fell. But it fell. But it's like, really, we were never big boned. But now when I'm standing by 18-year-olds now, I feel like they're big boned. Like I feel like their wrists are bigger than mine, their ankles are bigger than mine. And I was like the same size in the 8th grade. So I'm like, these kids now are like sturdy, like something different. Like it's not even the ones that aren't obese. Like they're like hardier cattle, hardier chattel.
Nice, dude.
Where they're TikToking.
I was gonna say maybe it's like an evolutionary thing where it's like they're being built. I don't know. They're like being prepared for something catastrophic that's coming down, or they have to be just stronger moving into the future that is, you know, being presented to us or something like that. I don't know. That's an interesting thought.
Or wild. You know how they say like a liger is bigger than a tiger and a lion?
Yes.
Because it has to go so far back in their DNA where they were the same animal, which happens to be like closer to a saber tooth. So that's why it's so huge. So then I wonder, like, if we all came from titans, what if that was the thing coming back? You know how everyone's having huge children right now?
Oh, dude, I had this thought on my hike this morning. Huge children. Okay, go.
No, I was just like, damn, every one of my friends that's had a baby, they have a beast of a baby, like
they're
a
huge.
big baby, where I'm like, even looking at it in the picture, and I don't know everything about babies. I'm like a run of the mill, like college dude when it comes to babies. I know nothing. And so, but I'm like, damn, that's a big ass baby. And then this is another off topic. I look at Barron Trump and I'm like, that kid's the tallest kid I've ever seen in my life. Like, legitimately, I never, like, he looks like he's a head and a shoulder taller than Donald Trump. And I'm like, is that kid in a film? So I'm like, are we about to see like the rise of the Titans? Like Gilgamesh shit? I'm like, bring it. I hope it gets that weird. Like, that's so much more exciting than some gray aliens. I'm like,
oh yeah, I know.
Godzilla
right?
out of the sea. Let's go.
Dude, the big babies. Oh my God, this is so funny. Wow.
Big babies.
I can't believe that. Yeah, I had that thought in my earlier today. And yeah, that's interesting because I know too, like when right around 2020 time, we have some friends that bless them, man, we can talk about the craziest shit with them, right? And it was our friend Christy, and she was talking about how, like, you know what? I like feel like the old ones are like coming back. Like we're starting to go through, like, we're at a gateway point where the old gods, the old goddesses are like being reawoken right now. And so it kind of goes along with what you're saying, like these giants that roamed before us. What if evolutionarily, if that's a word, these new children that are coming through are like kind of the re-ushering in of these giants that we
Like
all
a bell curve.
totally.
You know how they say, like, eventually we hit the bell curve of little, and now we're going back the other way. So we're all like, damn, these people are obese. Damn these. But my brother, like, when he tries to make me feel better about this little journey where I lost all this weight and then I gained steroid weight back and now I'm trying to get in shape, he's like, you have to have the fat before you have the muscle. If you didn't have anything there, then it would be so hard for you to build the muscle on that. And so what if, kind of like the evolution of humans, we have to have the fat before we have the muscle? And so we're seeing this obesity, large bone human, but really they're growing out before they grow up because they have to have enough caloric intake before they can have the growth spurts.
I like where this is going, honestly, because yeah. Oh man, interesting, dude. This is a good rabbit hole. I like it. I knew we'd come past some awesome rabbit holes like that were going to be random.
Something weird.
Yeah.
I love giants. I think that's my favorite. Like, I don't know if it's my favorite. I don't know. So many of them. Every time I think, I like time travel, Agartha. Like, every time I think there's like, but those are probably my top three. And Michael Jackson.
Dude, nice. I do like a good giant fantasy as well, I'll say. And I love the whole concept of, like mountains. Some mountains were trees. You're seeing like a goddess in a hillside, and literally you're looking at, it's like, wow, I see her hips, I see her shoulders. Oh my gosh. And living where we live in the Columbia Gorge, there are rock formations that are just like, dude, that is a straight up tree. That was a tree. It was cut off. You can see, or it fell or whatever. And I think that going back into that kind of side of history or what it possibly could have been is one of my favorites as well, to think about how that all happened. And there's plants even like horsetail that they say is like, some people will even call it like a fossil or whatever, but like saying that was like one of the prehistoric plants that was so huge at one point, and now it's like devolved to what it is, where they can get quite large, but it's like one of the building bones of even us because it's so rich in silica and it like absorbs the nutrients around it so well, and that it was actually one of the towering plants, that it was almost like a tree size, like what a pine tree might be, an average pine tree that could have been a horsetail, but like the average tree at that time was like way taller than what an average pine tree is now, and so I look at plants that way too, and seeing how a plant could have been that way, and they've almost devolved into the size that they are now for our needs for this, this time that we're in, and then they might go back up again, or Jack and the Beanstalk style, so
sometimes I theorize that a great flood happened again and again, but never went down. And so the larger animals couldn't shale the higher cliffs, and like they couldn't get a big fingerholds. And so they would just fall and drowned. and had denser muscle than we have. So they didn't float at all. And so the smaller species, like everything we see around us now, and the trees and they were the stuff at the top of the mountains. And so this
Ah,
is the least amount of oxygen up here. Even though I'm in Florida, I'm still at the top of a mountain if you drained the ocean down. And this place, like the Marianas Trench, is right off the side of the whole eastern seaboard. And it's a second deepest place, maybe in the ocean, maybe first. And so I think the depths of what is down, that's where all the bones of the things would be. And I think the telling us of the dinosaurs is entirely fake. Like entirely, like they always two birds, one stone. So yeah, the petrol oil and that not rejuvenating them telling us that, because they've slowly switched it into all of the like little wikis and stuff that they're like, no, it comes from plankton. It doesn't come from dinosaurs. We say it comes from plankton. And it's just like, y'all didn't say that to us for all these years. It's like the same as the Christopher Columbus thing, where they're like, no, we told you he slaughtered Indians. No, you didn't, though. You made us all worship him in elementary school. We even have a Christopher Columbus Day to prove it. Please stop trying to act like you've taught us this our whole life. And one day I woke up and I was racist for being like, Happy Columbus Day. And everyone was like, racist. And I was like, that happened overnight. Like that was, so I look at things like two birds, one stone, even the Jurassic Park. So it takes away the dragons. It tells us that these dinosaurs existed, but the key that it did, because I always think there's the hidden thing in the movie that nobody talks about. The number one thing that Jurassic Park did was that it implanted the idea in us that mosquitoes are prehistoric. And I think mosquitoes are entirely genetically modified individuals. Like, I think they're entirely fake. I think even the story of the love bugs that came out, that they were created in a lab to battle mosquitoes, I think the mosquitoes are entirely fake. Like, that was the cover story so that we'd never see the mosquitoes. And then they were like, no, we found it in sap. And then they reiterate it in Hollywood. And look at everywhere that the like Ebola and Zika and, you know, dengue fever and all these weird things, all mosquitoes, all airborne, like, or, you know, bloodborne. So I just
right.
think those mosquitoes don't make any logical sense. Like, they don't make sense to me. So like, they have no reason here. And in my next magical spill, I will be killing all the mosquitoes. Like, that will be my next spell.
Nice. I'm here for it, man. Well, it's funny too because the mosquitoes were such a huge deal this summer everywhere. Oh, the mosquitoes are so bad, you know. And we were down visiting Mario's family in Fresno, and you know his parents had the news on or whatever, and so it's like our one opportunity whenever we go to either of our parents' homes. It's like that's when we like hear, you know, the evening news or something. And they were talking about, I don't know, a small town outside of Fresno, how they were like fucking spraying for the mosquitoes, you know, and they were going to be spraying 3 days a week for the next month to kill off the mosquitoes and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, dude, this is so made up and fake and just another reason to poison everybody. Like all of a sudden just mosquitoes out of nowhere everywhere are so bad, but then their solution is to literally just like spray all over the place, this whole town where the people are obviously getting sick and they're complaining, and then don't go out from, you know, 6 o'clock to 5 o'clock or whatever it was, you know, don't leave your home because we're spraying. It's just like, what the fuck?
And
You
they have
know?
this special chemical that just kills mosquitoes. No, it kills all the bugs. And other
Exactly.
bugs eat the mosquitoes. And then it poisons the frogs. And frogs are the number one eater of mosquitoes. And then everywhere, when you look at these places where it's totally, they have tons of mosquitoes, they also have tons of just grass. They only have grass in their lawns. Everywhere is just one of those manufactured lawns where it's just like nothing, it's not edible. It's just pretty. And the more plants and different plants you have in your yard, the more types of bugs you bring to your yard. And it's not just mosquitoes. So it's just, like, to me, there's a mosquito commission in my town, and they spray, they have like this red Baron yellow. It's like, it looks like this old fashioned plane, and it cuts down so low so that it doesn't get sprayed by its own poison. And then they have trucks drive down the street and spray. And I'm just like, there's not better ways to do this. Like, why aren't you planting lemongrass everywhere? Like, why are you planting? Like, it doesn't, the logic behind, like, let's spray poison in a rainy place. All it does is wash into all of our waterways. And then we wonder why we can't drink our water or why our river's getting poisoned.
Right.
It's just so ridiculous. Mosquitoes.
It really is. No, I really love that you bring that up, that they're GMO fake, because I just think I have like traumatizing memories as a child of being
fake and gay. That's what those mosquitoes are, fake and gay.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah, being like doused and off, like, all right, kids, come over, cover your face and your eyes or whatever. And then it's just like you're being doused in this off spray, and then you like lick your lips and it's all over, you're tasting it and you're eating it. It's just like, wow. So to me, it seemed like an agenda driven thing this summer to just further poison people, whether they were going to go and buy bug spray for their bodies or the bug bombs that you can, put out in your yard and all that stuff. God damn. I don't know.
Oh my gosh. They blamed the sun. And the way they got us to wear the sunscreen because of the sun cancer. And so I've been going over this all week in my brain. How did they give us the sun cancer before the sunscreen? Because I believe all the sunscreen is really what's poisoning you.
Yeah.
And it's dawning on me in this moment. It was the off. They were giving us the bug sprays that caused the skin cancer. And then they blamed the sun for it. And then we got the sunscreen, which was causing more skin cancer.
Dude. Yeah.
Because they made us wipe ourselves. We had candles. We had sprays.
Yep.
Like, we couldn't go camping anymore without off on us. You'd get into a lake and you'd look like an oil spill.
You would. Oh my God. I can remember it very vividly, actually. Yes.
And then you get out and you have sunscreen on all day, bug screen on all night. And then I'm like, why is my spleen poisoned?
Yeah.
And it's probably all that stuff is made by DEET and Monsanto and all these same companies that are making the poisonous fertilizer and stuff that's going on the food we're eating.
Oh yeah, man. It's a whole vicious cycle. And it's so, when you really stand back and look at it, it's almost like it's a miracle we're all still alive or something.
Our bodies just constantly have to fight.
Constantly. And that's the other beauty of it. Like I said earlier, of just like, we're built to heal. So to know that we're being bombarded with all this stuff, and many people are able to walk away unscathed from things, or you get through enough or whatever, but it's just like the miraculous abilities of our bodies, just it never fails to amaze me at what we are capable of on so many levels. And all the things we're talking about kind of are a really great example of it, but yeah.
Scared you out of the sun, scared you out of the ocean.
Yep,
they played
everything.
Jaws and they're like, this is scary. Scared you out of the woods. And then scare us out of the woods so much until we're like, will you guys please make this state land? No, we just want it to be our land. We don't need rules on it. Like, we don't need them to tell us we have to get out of it after sunset so they can do their creepy rituals. Every time we ask them, we don't need their help with all this stuff. Like, that's where anytime when people are like one of my brilliant friends who's like, she is just really pragmatic with sometimes where so when people are like arguing, like let's say it's something like abortion and they're like pro-abortion, anti-abortion, and they're arguing, she's like, do you really want the government to come in and decide? She just stops the convo. Like, do you either of you want the government to come in and decide though? And that's really the answer to everything. Like, pro-gun, anti-gun. Do you want the government to decide though?
Right.
No, because then it's a whole nother thing that they're sticking their hands in our pockets for. Like, just a whole nother bureaucratic branch. So I'm like, they don't have our best interests out at heart. They don't want to tell us a good food pyramid. They let Bill Gates push Netflix agenda. They let all that vegan stuff fly. And my wife's a vegan. I know some people's blood type diets are it, but they pushed that whole agenda so they could sell Bill Gates meat to everyone and we'd all only be driving through drive-thrus during lockdowns.
Yep, bingo.
They don't want us to eat real vegetables. They don't want us to have real meat. They sure as shit don't want us to hunt. They don't want that at all.
Yeah, they don't want us to have the power or feel as though we have the power to make these decisions for ourselves. And I think that's like one of the I don't know. That's like one of my goals. It has been for a long time, is just to show people that you can do these things. You can, no matter what space you have, grow food. You can grow an herb that will help you to feel better, And I think like that's one of the biggest things that is lacking, I think, in a lot of ways. But on another side of it, I see a lot of people moving in that direction. And a lot of people had fires lit under their ass when we were told we couldn't go anywhere or see our families or whatever. A lot of people, took it as a wake up call, and then others went the other way. But, ultimately, I just think it's all about self, and it all comes back to ourself, having faith in yourself and realizing, as you said, that we're all magic. And the intention that you have for yourself and your life and the way you live it is everything. And regardless of what they throw at us, it's like, it's so important to stay in your own power, have your sacred center and know your sacred center, and be strong in it and be firm in it, even in the times where it's really difficult. Like when we're going through shit that is like throwing us under the bus or whatever it is. It's just like, I think that if you have your staff, your internal staff, and you can hold it and you can say your name and know like where you're at, I feel like that is like worth its weight in gold. Because I think when you lose your sacred center and when you lose your core essence and what it's all about, that's when the things get in. That's when that's when you can get taken for a ride, And I just think like we need to be remembering those things a little bit more. And the more and more I look at even society and how it is going, and how everything is just, there's no like central thing anymore. It's being decentralized, and we don't have like a core place where a lot of people go to, or if there is a community, it's like, I don't know, what's your community based in, all these questions that I have. And anyway, I just always come back to self, and I always try and remember that. And I think like that is something that children need to be taught more. And I think though that there's more people understanding that, and more people who are going to be raising children in that way. And that's, I guess like that's my hope, for a lot of things.
It takes a village.
Yeah.
Even the idea of nuclear family was a destruction of what we were supposed to be. Like, we weren't supposed to count our kids. We weren't supposed to, separate ourselves from each other in this way that we didn't have a community fire. Like, I feel like we used to help each other more and hoarded less. But it's the brainwashing, and they keep telling us this is human nature. This is human nature. This is you. No, all that dirty shit's them. All that dirty shit's them. Like, we feel like we're in scarcity, and we're in fight or flight, freeze, fawn, friend. We're constantly in one of these emotions. We have no idea who we are authentically are. We're all trying to be a little like the people we feel like are cool, or a little like the individual on TV, and we're all trying to be like something to make somebody proud or make somebody happy or make somebody. It's like so hard to find your real authentic self, whatever that is, what you like to wear, what you like to read, what you like to look into, and whatever those things are. It's hard sometimes to stay the course of whatever the things are, because the world wants to tell you those things are silly. Like, Michelle, why would you spend so much time gardening? You can just go to the grocery. Like, why would you even spend time wasting doing any of this when you can just do these other things? Like, and people, why would you have chickens? You can just go buy eggs. Why would you, read a book? You could just, Google it on YouTube. You could just get the Cliff Notes. You could just watch the movie. Why would you sit and have these conversations? Like, it's like people, I crave, I want all the work. I want all of the trudgery and all of the hymns and haws and the little excitement I get when I'm like, oh, what's this? But I've now realized like the things I'm called to look into, and I'm very comfortable, and I don't want to scare anyone anymore. I used to be a person like full disclosure, like everybody should know these things. And now I'm like, no, innocence deserves to be protected too. And everybody should have their own free will of looking at something when they're ready, whatever that thing is. And my ego no longer needs to like plant seeds and harvest it. So I just try to like, sometimes if I ever feel like, oh my God, I just got through to somebody, I'm just getting the luxury and the honor of harvesting somebody else's planted seed. And if I just plant seeds, I just have to let it go and just know that's somebody else is going to harvest that fruit one day. And so just writing in my authenticity, and you know, even if it's nerdy or even if it's awkward or sometimes it seems harsh, like sometimes I can just love one of my friends or family members so friggin' much and I feel like they're fucking up. And it's hard to tell them, I think you're fucking up. But I realize nobody does that anymore. And I only say that stuff because I love. And I think I'm just working at like loving unconditionally, whatever that means. And being able to tell people that shit too. But it's just my calling. I'm now realizing like I can tell everybody what I do. I could tell everybody what I look into. But now I'm like, there should be, if I don't even believe there's 8 billion people on the planet, but let's say there is. If there's 8 billion people on the planet, there should be 8 different separate apertures to source. 8 billion separate. There shouldn't be 1.6 billion that all think like this and, you know, 200,000 that all think like this. And like, no, it should be all these different things, all these millions, billions of different ideas, originality, thought, because when those people come together, something new is born. But if we're all sitting there living in this fake thing of like, you know, remember what we do, we're our church, like our collective, our thing, like, no, be your authentic thing. Be your authentic thing. That's the magic, is like everybody's differences coming together and then loving enough to being able to share the ideas without fighting. Like, you're on my side, I'm on your side. We might disagree about this thing, but is there really a wrong or right of this thing? So I just feel like even doing that with myself, is there really a wrong or right here? You're allowed to do this. I have to tell myself that so much. You're allowed to do whatever you want. Like, I have to give myself the freedom internally. And so I think that too. I think that people just trust your little self more. You were a little kid in there before your parents told you, before you listened to Chaney and Wonderland or Michelle's Healing Homes. You might pick little things out from everywhere, but somewhere your voice is the perfect voice, and your journey is it built your vessel in this way to have this perfect voice that everyone's desperate to hear. Like, desperate. The world needs to hear it, but it's your voice they need to hear. Not like you could take some of everybody's ideas and take everyone's thing and take someone, and some things you might agree with them 100%, but you're also allowed to disagree in some places. And you're also allowed to think, I don't know. Fuck.
Yeah,
Nobody
right?
ever does that
What a
anymore.
Concept. I know. I don't know.
I don't know.
And dude, talk about, you know, an ego trip, an ego, trying to put your ego in check by being able to ask yourself if you can say, I don't know, you know, and that was a struggle for me, because you always want to know. Everyone wants to feel like they know. And it wasn't until I really started, you know, teaching people about plants and learning myself how important it was for me to say, I don't know, when I didn't know. If someone were to ask me, what's that plant over there? And if I think it might be this, I would find myself doing that. And then I realized it's like, no, you can't say, I think it might be that. If you don't know, you just don't freaking know. And you're better off saying, I don't know, instead of saying, it might be this, but I don't know. Oh, well, it might be that it looks like that. It's like, no, just say you don't know. And I think like those sorts of lessons come to us in different times in our lives, and some lifetimes maybe won't experience it or whatever. But the I don't know thing is a big one these days. I think because of the internet, you see everybody is they're a critic, or everyone knows more than everybody else. And it's really interesting even just to go through comment sections sometimes and be like, wow, dude. Okay, I don't know, but everybody here is pretty damn sure about this thing, you know, and some people do know. And, I think that's important to just be open to knowing that sometimes when someone says they do know, they might not know. And like you said earlier, to do your own research, don't take everything for gospel that somebody says that you enjoy, because sometimes they don't know, or sometimes they're off, or it doesn't work the same way, or what have you, And so, anyway, I'm loving all the things that have been brought up here, though, I have to say. And, I kind of wanted to get into Hawaii and stuff, but now I'm just like, oh man, we'd probably go another hour.
I know that
But
actually that's where it's like some of those things I don't know. I like to philosophize about everything. I like to theorize about different things. And sometimes I philosophize about what the word theory means. And so I'm just like, this is so anything. I have like one Instagram that I'll like post anything. It could be the craziest thing. Just because I post it doesn't mean I think it's real. And most of the time, my captions are all questions. I don't, sometimes I look up, there isn't a question I ask you that I haven't looked up myself and that I don't have an answer, like I think I have an answer for. But most of the time, I don't want to have the answer anymore. Your head just has to ask the question. This is why they took philosophy out of school. And so it's not up to all of us having the answer. It's just once you start asking the questions in your brain again, it's like a muscle, and it's like they dammed our river somewhere, our flow of thought. And somewhere it's like a chip in the dam. Every time you get yourself to ask a question and just research the answer, even if you don't find the answer, you'll get better at researching it, and you'll start looking, and you'll start seeing what trusted sources are, and you'll start looking up reporters, and you'll start looking up who owns the paper, and you'll start looking up who printed the book, and it'll just go further back. And the more you do that and ask the questions of whatever it is, who, what, when, where, wow, how, why, you'll just chip things away in your brain until one day it's free flowing again. And then the original thoughts are there. And the original thoughts are the things floating around in the ether that have never been written down yet still. Out of everything that's ever existed, there's still original thoughts. There's still things left to discover. But I think you just have to not only work out your muscle, because you're not going to do it alone. It's when you work out this muscle enough and you chip away all the stuff, and then your heart stops, your ego's not involved. You have your healthy ego, that's your aperture, but then your heart's open to that. I can sit with you now, and I can say I don't know sometimes, and then I learn from you. And I also yammer, but listen. And that is like a huge thing with once you get good at saying, I don't know, you want to know. And you realize the best way to hear it is from somebody else's mouth. And so, yeah, like listen more. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm still growing every day. I like the growth. I like the growth every day. I like the evolving.
Yeah, same here. And I think that that's one of the small gifts of life that we get, like to take stock before you go to bed. Like, what was your day like? Instead of, trying to do something that's extravagant right before bed or whatever it is. It's like literally sitting with yourself and being like, man, what did I do today? What did I learn today? Did I learn something new or whatever? And when you challenge yourself to do that, even just trying it for like a couple days, if that's too much, sometimes you have to start real slow for one, sometimes somebody has to be like, all right, for the next couple days, I'm going to ask that question to myself. What did I learn today or whatever? Or
did you see anything beautiful today?
Yeah. What stood out? It could be anything. And I think like these are the simple self-care practices that are kind of overlooked. Like someone might not look at that as self-care, but it actually is, because you're growing your arsenal as you do that kind of stuff. And then that might allow you to think about something that you really needed to take stock in. And instead of being embarrassed about something that happened, it's okay to feel embarrassment, but why did you feel embarrassed? What was it about the thing that made you feel embarrassed, that made you clam up, that made you feel like you couldn't say what was on your mind, or you couldn't be truthful in that moment because of whatever? What was that? And then those are the strings that I feel like are really worth pulling at. And it's all, again, self-reflection and coming back to the self and knowing that we are the answers. We have the answers to a lot of the questions that we might not have answers for in the moment. And it's all about like tapping in and finding out what's going on within ourselves. really, at the
Yeah.
end of the day. So,
I think so too. I think
yes.
so too.
Wow.
What a
Well,
journey.
dude, it really is. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing everything that you did and all your insights. I knew we would be able to go everywhere, all over the board, and we did. And there's even things that we didn't get to that I wanted to, but I feel like if at some point you're down to come back on, I'd love to have you again. Then we can jump into some other rabbit holes together because I appreciate you, Chaney. I just want you to know, and I always have, just all the times I've been able to be with you on Spiders or watch you on Spiders or hear some of your other interviews. I've always really appreciated all your insights and where your mind goes and how open you are. And I just want you to know that I'm
I
rooting
think
for
you're
you.
so awesome too. I've liked your energy since the first time that I ever met you. And then it was like, it made so much sense because I've really always enjoyed Mario so much. And then to meet his other half was like, of course she'd be rad. Of course.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I just want you to know I'm rooting for you and we're here for you. And I hope someday to meet you in person. Just I've seen you post before, like meet your internet friends in person.
It's
And
the best.
it is. And I'm with you. And anytime you get that opportunity to do it, take it because that's where the real synergy happens. And I feel like it's really cool to be able to connect online. But when you can be with someone in person, there's just so many awesome things that can happen.
I'm not touchy-feely at all, but my internet friends make me touchy-feely in real life. And then I have to tell them, like, stop touching them. Don't be a weirdo. Because I just want to touch their back. Or I'm like, look at you right there. In my head, I'm just like, look at you right there. Look at you. Like a little nerd. And I'm just like, look how they walk. Look how they eat. Look how they do these. Like it's just all these little tiny like, oh my gosh, like driving with them in a car and then being like, move out of the way, whatever I say. And then I'm like, oh, because you usually show your best self to them online. And then I'm like, I'm a scumbag, I feel like.
Like burping and farting, and everyone's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you're like, this is all of me. I'm like, oh, I hope I don't stink. Like things you never think about. But it just makes you're really in your like 13-year-old self. It makes you feel like you're at camp or something. It's so cool. I've met enough of my internet friends in real life that every time I'm just like blown away that this person's real life.
Yep. It's freaking awesome. Here
It's
we
so
are.
Awesome. Here we are. Look at us just being humans.
Dude, right on. Well, for everybody listening, please let them know where they can find you. All the, wrapping up of a podcast sort of moment. The floor is yours. If you have any closing thoughts or you want to let anyone else know about whatever you're working on, go for it.
They can find me at projectchaney.com and anywhere they get their podcasts. I am trying to get my YouTube up. I know it's been a while since I put up a video there. There's only 3 right now for season 2, but I was dealing with the cancer. So I will get back to that. You can find me at Chaney_in_Wonderland and Project Chaney on Instagram, but Chaney in Wonderland's where I do like probably hang out the most. Also Project Chaney on Twitter. And then if you're feeling daddy-esque, you can find me on True Social at Just Chaney.
I love it. And all of your links are also in my description below. So people who are listening later, you can check that out too and find Chaney on all the arenas that we have available to us on the internets. And with
Thank
that,
you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk again soon. I know it. And have a really great night.
You as well.
All right. Later. Well, that was a banger. That's awesome. I'm loving it. And people in the chat are having some really great stuff to say. Sounds like everybody was enjoying it as well. So that was freaking awesome. And I'm so grateful to have had Chaney here with us on the Healing Home to share her story and all of her insights. So as always, for people who feel like sticking around, you can. I've got some slides and some updates for everybody. Let me get this up here. All right. So thank you to all the patrons. As I said in the beginning of the show, you guys continue to just bless us with abundance, and it's really appreciated. So we've got Chance, Binaboo, Sarah G, Liam, Amy, Miri and Hank, Jenny G, Erica, Moonlander, Spoons, Mary, Catherine, Logan, Lily, Debbie, Natasha, Mary Beth, Nausicaa, Stephanie, Jennifer, and my three newest patrons, Charlai, Peter, and Elise and James of Family Fungi. Thank you all so very much. You guys are making it possible for me and Mario to continue on this journey of spreading the word and sharing our knowledge and getting to talk to people like Chaney and share our conversations together. So patreon.com/the healing home if you're interested in heading over there to show some support. Next week, we got a to be determined show. So that'll be next week, Tuesday, the 29th. Not 100% sure what's going down, but it'll go down here on the healing home. So you can come back and join me here 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to find out what's coming down the pipeline. Full Moon Offering newsletter. Next issue is coming out in just, that's next week, Wednesday, I feel like 8:30. So we've got a blue moon, super blue moon coming up, full moon, second full moon of the month. So lots of big moon energy coming through for everybody. All patrons also, by the way, get my newsletter offering one day before everybody else does. So that's one of the perks of being a patron. Just a heads up on that. I still have 2 bottles left of my fresh garden mugwort tincture. If anyone's interested in trying some mugwort of mine, you can hit me up for that. Up on the screen, we also have my current menu. As usual, you can see the prices, you can see what I've got, and you can email me if you're interested in anything. You can also email me to find out if you, or to let me know if you want to try anything in bulk. If you know you like something that I make and you're like, I would like to have this in a bigger quantity or have a few of them around, get a hold of me and let me know if you want to do something like that. michelleshealinghome@gmail.com for all orders as of right now. Pretty soon we'll have an online store, which will be much more seamless for people to place orders. michelleshealinghome.com for anything else. If you want to read my blog, if you want to see the offerings I have, if you want to go back and see past newsletter issues, if you want to sign up for the newsletter, maybe find out about consultations, you can do all that on my website. You can also call or text me on my Google Voice number if that is something you fancy, 503-568-1569. Mario had a really great presentation last Friday, The Lion and the Virgin. Really great connections that he's making with this. He did a live stream and then he actually edited and turned that live stream into a video, which is really nice because then he was able to insert more photos and kind of like just bring the quality up a little bit on some of the resolution of things. So if you didn't get the chance to see that or listen in and you're interested in it, you can head to Symbolic Studies on YouTube, and that is up on his channel right now. Last Thursday, every Thursday. We took a week off last week. We both had stuff come up that we just had to focus on last week, Thursday. So we'll be back, though, with another episode of The Summer of Love, which is always heating up. There's always some great stuff to talk about in the 1960s. That was the other thing I wanted to talk to Chaney about, but that'll come at another time because I know she's got thoughts about the culture creation in general, but specifically of the 1960s. It was pretty heavy-handed, lots of stuff going on. So we'll come back with you guys this Thursday at 6 p.m. on The Healing Home for that. SymbolicStudies.com if you want to check out what Mario's got going on. He is streamlining everything through his website now. So any inquiries, any orders of anything that you want, you can do all through his website. So with that said, that is what I have for you all tonight. Thank you so very much for hanging out. Glad you guys were here for this conversation. It was awesome. And you guys are awesome too. Thanks for all your insights in the chat and your support and all your positivity. Always just very welcomed. So thank you guys. Until next time, I'll see you then. Take care. Have a good night.